It only took me a few seconds to destroy what had been built up over the years. But it wasn't all my fault. The story I'm about to tell you does not have a conventional ending. Wait until the end to find out how it all turned out. It was just a baseball cap, navy blue, cracked bill, faded logo of a team that hadn't made playoffs in 15 years. But that cap had been with me since college. I used to wear it on game days, back when my shoulder still worked, and the future had room for maybe. I'd kept it on the top shelf of the closet, tucked behind a stack of winter scarves no one used anymore. It wasn't a thing that got borrowed. Not by the kids, not by her. That Tuesday morning, while grabbing a sweater, I noticed the space above the shelf felt emptier. At first I told myself it had probably slipped down behind something. I even checked half-heartedly, brushing my hand along the dust-rimmed shelf edge. Nothing. I figured maybe I dropped it in the garage. Maybe it fell during laundry. Maybe. But there was a wrinkle behind my ribs, the kind that starts small but spreads every time you breathe. And then came Sunday, family calendar day. Her idea, one of those yearly rituals meant to fake cohesion. She'd arranged for a local photographer to take candid shots in a park, the kind with golden leaves and faux laughter. I played along, wore the shirt from our wedding. She said it would be symbolic, nostalgic, a tribute. By mid-afternoon, we were all fake smiling under golden trees, the kids tossing leaves like they didn't hate each other for stealing chargers. I was scrolling later that night when I saw her Instagram story. The one she said was from the salon, except she wasn't at a salon. She was leaning into someone else's arm at what looked like a brewery patio, a pint in one hand, and my cap on someone else's head. He wasn't tagged, of course. Just one of those bullshit captions, self-care Sundays. That was when something inside me began to slow cook. Not boil, not rage, just heat, controlled, like a fuse lit underwater. I went outside to the grill, took off the wedding shirt, folded it once, then I burned it, watched it collapse into ash through the grates, pulled out my phone, hit record. 20 days, I said, then strike. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even pretend. I lay awake, arms folded behind my head, listening to the soft purr of her breath beside me, the breath of a liar, stealing air like she hadn't already stolen years. On Friday, I left home late on purpose. I kissed her forehead the way I used to, told her I'd be late, that I had birthday errands to run, the lie she'd gifted me without even asking. She smiled, guiltless. That afternoon, I checked the recording from the bear. It was a gift from her mother when our first son was born. One of those oversized stuffed things that just sat in the corner of the kid's room like a furry piece of furniture. I had stitched a directional mic inside the ear a week prior, buried deep, battery-packed, noise-isolated. If anyone talked near it, I'd know. I played the audio on headphones in my truck, parked 2 blocks from home. At first, just the sound of the kids yelling at Mario Kart, a door closing, silence, then her voice, soft, too sweet, on a FaceTime call. She was in our kitchen. "Adam thinks I'm planning a birthday surprise," she said, laughing. "Ironic, right?" A pause, someone said something. Then her again, quieter. "Number, he's clueless. Still wears that dumb cap to bed sometimes. I mean, not literally, but yeah, that one." Another pause. Yeah, tonight. Once they're asleep, same routine." I pressed stop. My hands were calm, which surprised me. I didn't feel broken. I felt electric. The audio wasn't a knife. It was a blueprint. She wasn't just lying. She was staging a performance, weaponizing the domestic lull, pretending to plan a birthday while rehearsing betrayal in my own goddamn kitchen. That night, while she brushed her teeth, I logged into the joint bank account and emptied it into a new one. Business checking, under the name of a shell company I had quietly registered the previous month. She wouldn't notice. Not immediately. She never checked the banking app. Too trusting or too lazy. Either way, she wouldn't see it until the birthday. Until it was far too late. I didn't flinch when she kissed me goodnight. Didn't blink when she curled up beside me with the same practiced murmur she always used. "I love you." Like it meant something. Like it hadn't rotted on her tongue. I stared at the ceiling for hours, tracking the cracks in the paint like battle lines, counting days, plotting angles. I didn't know who he was yet, but I had time. 17 days to go. 17 days out, I stopped sleeping. Not from grief. That was dead and buried. This was calculation. My body stilled. My brain accelerated. I moved through the days like a shadow in my own life. Made breakfast, packed lunches, smiled when she smiled. Nights were harder. I'd lay next to her in the dark, counting heartbeats like seconds on a bomb. 2 nights after the Bears recording, she asked me to watch the kids on Friday. She had a late coffee with a client. I nodded and smiled. Perfect. I had already installed a GPS beacon under her car. When she left that night, I tracked her across town. She didn't go near a cafe. She pulled into a residential area, parked in front of a townhouse, and walked in like it was muscle memory. 3 hours and 17 minutes. When she came home, she carried her heels in her hand, and her hair was tied up. I watched from the shadows behind the blinds. The next morning, I made her coffee just the way she liked it. Oat milk, cinnamon, no syrup. She kissed my cheek and hummed. She was good at this. Professional even. But she didn't know I had already pulled our joint funds into a new account the night before and filed her name off my startup's ownership docs. She was lying with choreography. I was building a stage for her collapse, 12 days left. I told her I was taking the kids to the cabin for a surprise fishing trip. She smiled like it was sweet. I knew she'd use the house. I wanted her to. Before we left, I left a small gift on the bed, her old perfume bottle, empty but still fragrant, a souvenir from the version of her that once felt real. I had 5 cameras hidden around the house, motion-triggered, battery-fed, beamed to cloud. I didn't watch the feed live. I wanted to feel it all at once. Later, uninterrupted. Sunday night when we returned, she was glowing. She made lasagna. She laughed at the kids' stories, said she'd spent the weekend journaling. I chewed quietly and thought about what was waiting in the cloud drive. At 1 a.m., I watched it. She hadn't let him inside through the front. She met him barefoot at the back door, hair wet, wearing my hoodie. He didn't even have to knock. They kissed like they'd done it 100 times. She led him through the kitchen. One camera caught his hand under the hem of her hoodie. They stayed in our bedroom for an hour. Later, she walked the hall in nothing but socks and a smirk, peeking into our kids' rooms like she deserved to. When he left, she whispered behind the door, "He still thinks it's a birthday plan." I almost feel bad. Almost. I said nothing, told no one. Not my brother, not my best friend, not even the therapist I used to see once a year. This was mine, my fire, and I wasn't ready to share the warmth just yet. 8 days left, I filed shell paperwork under a fake consulting firm name, paid cash. No paper trail back to her. I shifted some insurance policies, clean, legal, invisible. 7 days left, I set the hook. A fake couples therapy session. Office rented by the hour. Therapist, played by a family friend. Stage actress, off-Broadway talent, and someone who owed my brother a favor. I gave her one line to bait the trap. "What's your biggest fantasy?" And my wife, with zero hesitation, like she'd rehearsed, said, "To date 2 men at once. They don't even need to know." She smiled, smug, lit from within. I handed her a single sheet of paper. "Good," I said. "We already do." It had 2 things, her CrossFit coach's name, the man from the townhome, and a signed STD panel. The look on her face didn't shift immediately. She blinked twice, swallowed, tried to speak, failed. I stood. Session's over. She didn't mention therapy after that, didn't ask for another session, didn't bring up fantasies again. The silence between us took shape, not like absence, but like armor. She started tiptoeing through rooms she once ruled, woke up earlier, wore makeup on Sundays. I let her. I needed her to feel uncertain. 5 days out, I began curating the final weapon, a slideshow titled Our Year in Photos. I pulled everything from the cloud storage, family trips, beach selfies, Halloween with the kids dressed as astronauts, our last anniversary dinner, her smiling across candlelight with wine she never finished. I arranged them carefully, light first, then slow descent. I buried the darker frames near the end, Quiet frames, stolen stills, hallway angles that weren't hers to know. And then, the finale, a short silent clip. Him, wearing my robe, opening my fridge, in my kitchen. The sequence played like a love story told in reverse. Intimacy unwinding itself until it was just rot, flickering in 4K. I booked the party 2 days later. We'd always thrown an annual spring party. Her idea. Friends, co-workers, old college pals. Everyone we'd smiled at in Christmas cards. She said it kept our circle tight, reminded people we were still that couple. I kept the tradition. This time I sent the invitations myself. She didn't protest. In fact, she seemed relieved. Thought it meant things were smoothing out. She wore the red dress, the one I bought her 4 anniversaries ago. It still fit like a memory. I complimented her. Meant none of it. The night started warm. Laughter spilled from the deck. Music low enough to feel curated but random. People hugged, clinked glasses, asked about the kids. She worked the room with that hostess grin. Gracious, glowing. I stayed back, sipping champagne like I was watching a play. At 9:42 p.m., when the crowd was dense and the wine was full, I stood beside the TV with a small remote in hand and tapped my glass twice. "Appreciate everyone coming," I said calmly. "We made something special. Thought we'd share it. A look back at our year." The room dimmed. The screen lit up. At first it was harmless, sweet even. Smiles, beach waves, birthday candles. The crowd softened. Someone even said, "Aw." She stood beside me, arm grazing mine. Then gradually it changed. Images slowed, zooms sharpened. Faces appeared in rooms they didn't belong in. Moments no one remembered taking. Silent pauses that grew teeth. A few people squinted. She shifted beside me, the contact between us gone. Then the final clip. No audio. Just him. That same man in the hoodie from the videos. Now shirtless, wearing my robe, pulling our milk out of the fridge, scratching his shoulder. He looked straight into the camera and smiled like he owned the place. The room turned cold. Her best friend, the loud one, the loyal one, dropped her glass. It shattered in the corner. Someone gasped. She bolted. And my wife? She didn't scream. She didn't speak. She just walked backward, one step at a time, until she vanished down the hallway like smoke. I raised my glass to a year of truth and took a long, slow drink. After the last guest left, she didn't come out. I stayed in the living room, watching the ice melt in a bowl someone left on the counter. At 2:30 a.m., she emerged, face streaked with makeup, eyes wide but dry. She didn't yell, didn't explain, just looked at me like a child waiting for punishment. But I didn't offer it. I just walked past her, into the guest room, and shut the door. 3 days later, I received a letter from her lawyer. She was filing for alimony. Apparently, the slideshow had created emotional damage and constituted public shaming. It was calculated psychological harm. Her attorney suggested she deserved support due to loss of marital status and reputational impact. I laughed so hard I scared the dog. But she didn't know I'd already met with someone better. A sharper lawyer, someone who knew what leverage smelled like, and I had it in spades. Turns out she'd kept a secret second income. OnlyFans. Under a username I recognized from a random pop-up on my son's iPad browser. I'd dismissed it at the time, but now it clicked. The nail polish color, the necklace, the background art from our guest room wall. It was her, and she'd been earning a lot. More than me, in fact. I pulled archived screenshots, retrieved metadata, drafted a request to the platform under her legal name. They sent a download link, over 500 pieces of content, dated, tagged, monetized. I had the numbers, and her alimony case died before it left the nest. The next week, she stayed quiet, too quiet. The house grew heavy with it. She cooked dinner she knew I liked but hadn't made in years. Wore old pajamas she used to sleep in when we first moved in. She cleaned obsessively, even asked if I needed anything at the store, a line she hadn't said in months. None of it mattered, because something in me was already gone, something she couldn't clean or charm back into place. She knocked on the door to my study Thursday night. "I just want to fix this," she said. "All of it. I looked at her like I was seeing a neighbor, vaguely familiar but not mine. You already did, I said, voice level. Just not the way you think. And closed the door. 2 nights after I closed the study door in her face, she stopped trying. No more dinners, no soft knocks, no fake apologies wrapped in old pajamas. She went quiet. Not the guilty kind of quiet, but the kind people use when they're rearranging their narrative, rehearsing their version of the story. I knew it well. She'd done it once before, back when she lied to her father about crashing his car and blamed a deer that never existed. Except now, the deer was me. I could feel it shifting in her, that need to rewrite the truth before it settled into something permanent. She wasn't remorseful. She was strategic. So I turned the next screw. 3 days after her alimony bluff fell apart, I bought something that had nothing to do with her, or maybe everything. A 1968 Ford F-250, pale green, body still solid under the rust. The kind of truck her father used to point out in old magazines. The one he once said he'd give his left arm to restore, if life hadn't gotten in the way. It took me 6 hours and one favor to get it hauled into our garage. Then I made a call. Come by, I told him. Need help with something mechanical. He showed up in worn jeans and a cigar half tucked behind one ear. His handshake was dry. Firm still carried that old school weight of a man who'd built his life by hand. I didn't waste time. We stood in the garage next to the truck. Hood popped, parts scattered across an old tarp. The smell of gasoline clung to the air like memory. Then I played him the audio. Not all of it, just a slice. Her voice, shaky, recorded on one of her FaceTime calls right after the slideshow disaster. I won't survive if my dad finds out, she said. He'll never look at me the same. I watched him listen, stone-faced. Watched the way his eyes stopped moving, like something behind them shut down. When the clip ended, he took the cigar from behind his ear and lit it without a word, smoked it down to the filter. Then said, "Take the kids." She's no daughter of mine. He helped me pack their suitcases the next morning. Didn't ask for details. Didn't mention her once. She was out when we moved. Probably grocery shopping, probably imagining we'd one day look back on all this and laugh. By the time she returned, the house was quiet. But the quiet was different now. It wasn't tense. It was empty. There, taped to the front door, was a single drawing. Our youngest had made it the night before, while sitting in the back of the truck, sketchbook balanced on her knees, crayon scribbles, a little house by a lake, stick figures, me, Grandpa, the kids, a fishing rod, a dog, and 4 words in her shaky handwriting. Now we live with Dad. She found the suitcases stacked just inside, folded clothes, toothbrushes, favorite toys, missing shoes. Every detail pointed to permanence. She didn't call, not immediately. But 2 days later, I got a voicemail. She tried to sound calm, her voice smooth like a hostage negotiator. Said she wanted to talk things through. Said I was being irrational, that the kids would be traumatized. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent a single text. You were the trauma. We moved into a trailer by the lake. 1 bedroom. Barely enough space for a coffee table and bunk beds. But it was ours. And it was honest. I kept a cast iron skillet on the stove and a tackle box near the door. Woke the kids at dawn on weekends. We fished. We played cards. We told stories by lantern light. The simplicity was healing, not because it erased the damage, but because it stopped adding to it. Every morning I made coffee in a tin mug, and every morning I added a sentence to a book I had started in a notebook the same week I lost everything else. Emotional Engineering, How to Break Without Shattering. Working title, maybe dumb, but it kept my mind sharp, and I needed sharp. Life settled, somehow. Then came the dog. She showed up at the trailer a month later, dragging a blanket and bleeding from the paw. Copperhead bite, ribs showing, no collar, a mutt with golden eyes and twitchy legs. She collapsed at my feet before I could say a word. I drove to the vet in town. Small place, gravel lot. Just a name painted on old wood. Dr. Evelyn Hart, animal medicine. No BS. She saved the dog's life. I didn't realize she'd start saving mine. We saw each other again by accident, bumped carts at a bait shop, laughed over the wrong fishing hooks, then again at the gas station, then again when she waved at my kids and they waved back like they'd known her for years. By the sixth time, I brought a thermos of coffee to her porch. She wore an old jacket from a band I loved in high school, Stone Temple Pilots. We talked about useless degrees and songs we still remembered the words to. On our sixth date, we didn't talk about broken things. But I think she knew anyway. She ran her fingers over a scar on my wrist I hadn't noticed in years, then said, "I'm not asking what broke you, but you've put yourself back together strong." A year after the divorce finalized, on a day when the lake was glass and the trout were biting hard, I got a message. It was a number I hadn't seen in months. The preview read, "I'm in the hospital. Do you want to say goodbye?" I stared at it for a while, long enough to remember every lie she ever told in my kitchen, every silent betrayal between folded laundry, every night she slept like she was alone in the house. Then I typed a single word, number, and blocked the number. I used to think peace was a sound, like the hush of water rolling against aluminum or the snap of trout breaking the surface. I thought I'd found it. Out here by the lake, between the dogs sleeping on my boots and the kids chasing frogs under dusk, there was finally stillness. Not silence, but a stillness I could live inside. Then one envelope brought it all back. I found it half buried in a week's worth of junk mail. No return address, just my name, typed on a cheap white label, inside a photograph and a folded court notice. The photo was of her, my ex-wife, standing in front of a brick building, holding the hand of a boy. Not our son, taller, different jawline, a little too old, a little too familiar. The boy wore my college team's hoodie, one I hadn't seen in over a year. The court document wasn't a summons. Not technically, it was a request. She was filing a petition to introduce the boy to his half-siblings, my kids, and she was calling him her son. Conceived, apparently, during our marriage. The dates were a knife to the ribs. I stared at them for 10 straight minutes. The math wasn't hard. He was born 4 months after she claimed to have a miscarriage 6 years ago. A pregnancy we never told anyone about. One that she wept through for weeks, that I wept through beside her. Except now I knew she hadn't lost anything. She'd just redirected the story. She hadn't miscarried. She'd given birth to his child and hidden it like luggage in a different life. I took the letter and drove. Not far, just to the clearing past the bend where the old bridge sags over the creek. I needed distance. Not from the kids, not from Evelyn, but from the part of myself that wanted to scream until my ribs cracked. I sat on the hood of the truck, feet on the bumper, head tilted toward the stars that didn't care who you used to love. She had lied in every direction. Lied to my face. Lied in silence. Lied with tears. I thought the worst was over. Turns out it hadn't even started. The kids didn't notice anything was wrong. I didn't let them. Pancakes still flipped. School projects still got glued. Bedtime stories still ended with the same dumb voices I'd been doing for years. But at night, I read the letter again. It was worded carefully. She wasn't demanding visitation yet, just introductions. Said the boy was asking questions, that she felt it was time, that the children deserved the full picture. I considered replying. Then I found the email chain, hidden in an old backup folder on the shared cloud we used to have, one she thought I'd deleted years ago. In it, I found messages she'd exchanged with his family, his mother, his sister. They all knew about the child, knew he was mine on paper, knew he wasn't mine in blood, and not one of them said a word. They'd raised him like some hidden heir while I sat in a delivery room with a ghost in her stomach. The rage wasn't fire, it was ice. It settled into my spine and froze everything soft. I stopped writing my book. I stopped sleeping well. Even Evelyn noticed. She asked me straight up one morning over coffee, "Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to pretend I don't see it?" I told her everything, all of it. From the cap to the robe, to the bear to the robe again. Now on a different boy, in a different life. I showed her the letter, the photo, the court document. I even told her about the voicemail, the one I answered with no before blocking the number. She listened like she was cataloging data, not grief. She didn't flinch, just reached over and laid a hand on mine. Do you want him near your kids? She asked quietly. No, I said. I want him to not exist in this story. Then make that clear, she said, before someone else writes it for you. I met with my lawyer the next day. He was older now, grayer around the beard, heavier around the eyes, but sharp as ever. He read the petition and leaned back slowly. She's not stupid, he said. She knows she can't force visitation without a fight. But she's picking one anyway, I replied. Yeah, he nodded. That's what predators do when they think you've gone soft. I signed a counterclaim, a motion to prevent contact based on custodial clarity and psychological stability. I submitted old footage, voice clips, income records, private messages, evidence of mental manipulation. My lawyer filed everything under a protective clause. This man is not their brother, and his presence would not benefit their lives. If she wanted to turn this into a fight, she'd have to explain every inch of her betrayal under oath. I hoped she would. I wanted the gavel to drop like a gunshot. 2 nights later, Evelyn sat beside me on the trailer's tiny porch, her hand tracing the back of my knuckles. She asked what I wanted most. I didn't say peace, not anymore. I said, I want the truth to stick. I want it to stain her story. I want her to know that I walked through fire, and she still couldn't scorch me. Evelyn nodded. Then she leaned into my shoulder, and we sat there while the lake went dark and the stars blinked, indifferent but present, like reminders that pain has no monopoly on permanence. It started with a knock, not frantic, not soft, just 2 steady taps, confident in a way that pissed me off before I even opened the door. She stood outside the trailer, arms folded, feet crossed like she was posing for a picture. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said. I just want to talk. I didn't move. The kids were inside playing cards. She wasn't getting anywhere near them. She held out an envelope. It's from him, my son. He wrote it. I didn't coach him. I looked at her fingers but didn't take it. Same nail color she always wore when she lied about where she was going. And you thought showing up here unannounced was smart? I didn't think you'd read it if I mailed it. You're right, I said. She looked me over. You look good. Don't. I mean it. You seem clear. I didn't expect to survive. She hesitated. Number I just figured you'd disappear. That was always her fantasy. Me vanishing, her regretting, her controlling the narrative. But this version of me had already buried the man she married. I burned the letter that night. Didn't even open it. It wasn't hatred, just clarity. That boy wasn't mine. I wouldn't hate him, but I wouldn't let my children's world get rewritten by her need for redemption. She didn't come back the next day, but her father did. He pulled up in the Ford, polished, repainted, engine humming like a new scar with a second life. He handed me the keys. Kept the ashtray, he said. Figured it deserved to stay. He turned to go, then paused. You're a better man than I gave you credit for. I wish I'd raised a daughter who could see that. No bitterness, just the quiet failure of a father who saw too much too late. A week later, I got the petition. She wanted integration. She called it a psychological process, introducing her son to his half-siblings for holistic family health. She cited research, named psychologists, framed it all like growth. But this wasn't about healing. It was her trying to crawl back into relevance through another door. My lawyer's response was brutal. 39 pages, timelines, metadata, screenshots, financial trails, lies she couldn't explain. We filed a motion for supervised contact only, citing emotional manipulation and psychological risk. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was locking the door. Evelyn never pressed me to talk, but she always noticed. That morning, she caught me staring across the lake, mug untouched. You're waiting, she said. I didn't answer. You think there's still one more blow? There always is. She reached into her coat and handed me a paper. Final court dismissal. Her petition was dead. No integration, no contact, no re-entry. It came in this morning, she said. Didn't want to interrupt dinner. I read it twice. I didn't feel triumph. I felt weightlessness. We went camping that weekend. Just me, the kids, and Evelyn. I watched them roast marshmallows and laugh at her terrible jokes. Watched my son ask her to help with his tangled line. And for once, I wasn't scanning the horizon for the next collapse. It didn't feel like a new life. It felt like the one I earned. Later that night in the tent, Evelyn curled against me. "You still writing the book?" she asked. I shook my head. "Then start another," she said. "This time, make it about the rebuild." The message came while I was tying a fishing line. Nothing dramatic, just a vibration in my pocket, a preview bar sliding across my phone screen like any other. "I'm in the hospital. I'd like to talk. Do you want to say goodbye?" I didn't respond. I stood there, the kids chasing frogs by the lake, the dog chewing a sock beside the truck. I stared at the water until the sun touched it, and when I finally opened my phone, I typed one word: "No." Then I blocked the number. She died 3 days later. Sepsis. Something cosmetic, poorly done. Something she didn't tell anyone about. Vanity and silence, her oldest habits, finally caught up with her. No dramatic ending, just a quiet expiration in a hospital bed surrounded by no one. They still had me listed as her emergency contact. That detail felt like a cruel joke, like being named captain of a ship long after it sank. I didn't go to the funeral. Her father paid for it. Closed casket, minimal attendance. The boy, the one she hid from me, was there. 16 now, taller than me, wore a blank expression and my old college hoodie. He didn't say a word, and neither did I. We stood on opposite sides of a life neither of us asked for. The kids barely reacted. No tears, no questions, just a glance. My daughter asked if Evelyn could still help her with her diorama. My son went back to his fishing knot. They didn't mourn because she hadn't been part of their lives in over a year. Grief doesn't show up for ghosts. That night, Evelyn was brushing her teeth when I told her. "She's gone," I said. She stopped mid-motion, then turned toward me. "Do you feel anything?" I paused, then nodded. "I feel clean." Summer came in hard after that. The lake turned glassy. The kids swam like fish. Evelyn grew tomatoes in paint buckets. I rebuilt a workbench by hand. No plans, no measuring. Just feel. It came out better than anything I'd ever built with blueprints. I started writing again. Not the old book. Not the one about emotional damage and control. A new one. About peace. About rising without shouting. About turning silence into strategy. Evelyn read the first draft and said it didn't sound like revenge. "It sounds like a blueprint," she said, "for survival." I found her old Instagram one night. Still active. Frozen. Last post was a close-up selfie with watery eyes and a quote graphic. "Healing isn't linear, but love is worth the detour." Her bio still said, "Mom, dreamer, warrior heart." I logged in. She hadn't changed the password. I scrolled through the fake anniversaries, the filtered smiles, the captions that painted me as an obstacle she had grown beyond. It was all still there, like a gallery of lies framed in pixels. I deleted every post. Then I deactivated the account, not out of spite, out of necessity. She built her fantasy online. I took it away with one click. 1 year after her death, we stood in the truck bed under a wide sky full of stars. The kids were asleep inside. The lake barely moved. Evelyn handed me a thermos of coffee. "You ever think about her?" she asked. I took a sip. "Only when I want to remind myself what never to become." She leaned into me. "She didn't just lose you." "No," I said, watching the dark horizon. "She lost the version of me that would have ever looked back." That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.